What's happening, YouTube and the internet? Terrence here, and we are back for our weekly live Q&A show. That's still very much a working title, but I like it. We're gonna go with it, right? Especially before when we add the second live vlogcast or vlog, I guess if you will, that's going to come to the channel. But if you're just now tuning in, thank you for being here for our weekly live Q&A show. It's back on track to being back on Saturdays. We flexed it a couple times uh, at the beginning or towards the middle of last month, but here we are. We're back on our normal Saturday schedule, and we are discussing your monitor's refresh rate or ways to better understand your monitor's refresh rate and overall just some things you should know or you should look into before buying or upgrading your monitor, right? We talked about monitors especially on a couple live streams here in the past, and you can always kind of track back and check them out if you want to, if you want to go a little bit further in depth in the conversation, right? As far as monitors in general, and a few things you should look out or a few things you should consider when buying a new gaming monitor. But in this live stream, in this YouTube live stream, more specifically, we're going to talk about your monitor's refresh rate and why it is important to your experience as a PC user. Rather that's gaming, rather you have rather you're gaming or you have a content creation workflow that may involve gaming. That's what I was trying to get at. That's what I was trying to say. So while we wait for a few more friends and fam to join in to join in for the show, I just want to jump into the chat because I see we had a little pre-gaming going on before the start of the show, and I do want to say what's up to Cliff, XLRA Gaming, Tiger Nation, my son, and my other son LT. I forgot what name he's on, but he's out there. Shout out to Bad Habit, and of course our moderator Kimberly. Guys and gals, thank you for tuning in once again. And if you're here in the chat and you're just joining in, which I see we have a few more people joining into the live stream, welcome. Welcome once again. Welcome to the Inside the Lab weekly live Q&A show. If this is your first time, do tell us down in the chat. We love to welcome in new viewers all the time. If you have any questions about the topic at hand, which is better understanding your monitor's refresh rate, please feel free to drop it at any time. It's a little unorthodox, but during my live streams, I like to actually engage in questions and comments in real time, as opposed to doing it towards the end. Maybe you have to leave and you wasn't able to get your question in because it was pushed all the way back towards the, it was pushed back towards the end of the live stream. So I like to answer your questions in real time. If you have any questions about the topic or anything you want to ask me, because our live stream kind of it doubles as a ask me anything slash Q&A. Rather you want to ask me something about me, like kind of music do I listen to, what kind of games do I like to play, where was I born, what are my likes, what are my dislikes. I'll try my best to, answer them as they come along, of course. But yeah. So there we go. All right, third kill. That's my son. Excuse me. Next RLA game says I gotta hop back in 30. Just getting home. Absolutely. Take your time. We're going to be here for a while. This topic is one that I specifically wanted to save for a live show because our live shows are typically centered on a topic that's meant to help you enhance or, improve your experience with your machine, with your hardware, aka your system, right? A lot of the members here in the community are well experienced. We're always willing to help and answer your questions. That way you can get the most out of your equipment, right? The most out of your hardware, and you can just level up where you need to, in areas you need, that are lacking or areas that you would like to improve, right? So yeah. Again, if you're tuning in, tell me where you're watching from. I'm here in the U.S. of A. in Maryland. Give you a little quick update. The weather is nice, but we are looking at more snow, right? And just precipitation overall. I'm not a big fan of the snow. I don't like cold. That's we're overclocking. I talked about this previously all the time. But yeah, I'm here in Maryland. Tell me where you're watching from. I love interacting and just seeing where we have different members of the community. I love our global friends and fam. I know we have members here in the community all over the globe, and it's just an awesome experience. So yeah, as we have more friends trickle on, I just want to jump into everybody's favorite segment, and that is our housekeeping segment. Lab fam, guys and gals, join our email list, right? Unity starts with you. I am going to start testing emails more and more outside of just sending, community digest updates on upcoming live streams, or if it's a heavy series, or by heavy, I mean rich in content. I will start sharing them in our email list, among other things. New community programs to better connect the community and ways to keep the conversation going off the platform. All those notifications are going to go to our email subscribers on our email list. It's free to sign up. You're free to unsubscribe anytime should you feel like I don't deserve to embrace your email box, right? your your inbox. Just give me your first name and your email address so I know how to find you and what to call you. So yeah, definitely look out for that. Notifications on social media. It's hard sometimes to shuffle through all the noise. Even here on YouTube, notifications don't always go out. YouTube's always testing it, but this I can better control the message this way if I have your email address. Plus, God forbid something happens to the channel and inside we fade away, or YouTube decides to, you know, make us disappear, or they'll float us, if you will. We can still stay connected in case we need to reboot. But no worries, Laugh Fam. I don't anticipate that happen anytime soon. But in the event, because Murphy's Law, sign up for our email list, right? Unity starts with you. Now, everybody's other the second area of discussion, and that is merch. Now, I am currently in the process of designing new merch as we speak. I design all the merch myself, but I do have some pretty cool swag coming up here on the merch store. So definitely check back and forth between the merch store. If you see something you like and it's priced a little too high, let me know, right? Because I would like to run a sale, but they're already priced as low as possible. If you're a creator here with this now live or on the replay, and you've used Teespring, you know what I mean, right? You know what I'm coming from. But they are priced as low as I could possibly price them. Not really looking to make a profit, just want you to represent the brand, represent the message in the community. So check out the merch store again. Different signatures, different lines of clothing that'll be making its way over there. And if you have any ideas too, feel free to shoot me a DM or shoot me an email, and you can. Speaking of doing that, you can head over to the website. It is an extension of the brand. It's an extension of the content here. You can also contact me directly should you have an idea on, anything. I know I've talked to some of you outside of the platform and on email. And so if you're interested on how you can shoot me a message, rather you want to just say, hi in an informal way or in a formal way, I suppose. That's one way to do it. You can check out the whole videography, quick link to the merch store, and of course our community blog, which I'm going to look to add more content here going forward. So yeah, definitely check out the website. You can find all of the links to these websites and more in the basement, aka the description box below. It really supports the channel and just kind of helps me grow the brand and overall message, right? Bad Habit says Boston, Mass. It says it's 45 degrees, but it's really 15 with the wind. SMH, yeah. I mean, when the Hawk is out, it really changed the dynamic of weather, right? Like, man. But that's awesome. So a little bit of Boston in the house. Okay, awesome. And everybody else, tell me where you're watching from. I see we got a lot of people here on the stream. Tell me where you're watching from. If you have any questions about anything we're going to discuss here on the live stream, again, feel free to ask anytime. If you're just now joining us, this is our 21st weekly live Q&A. We celebrated our 20th live stream last Sunday. This is our 21st live stream, and we're well on our way. 100 is the goal, to be honest with you. 100 videos on this channel is the goal, was the goal even before, reaching the milestone most creators like to achieve, and that's at least 1,000 subscribers. But we talked about this last week. You're always going to want more, right? Like 1,000 won't be enough. You'll hit 1,000 and you'll just want maybe 2,000. You'll hit 2,000, you'll just want 3,000. It's just never enough. But the one, benchmark, if you will, the one stat line you can control, and that's how many videos you produce. So my goal is to produce 100 quality videos. By quality, I mean videos that are helpful and entertaining here on this platform that can help you, expand your knowledge base, help you save money in this hobby that everybody knows is real expensive, right? But there are ways to circumvent that. Tiger Nation says, can our YouTube channel get a shout out? Zion, didn't know you had one. I don't know. Didn't know you had one. Shout outs are tricky, but it's something we have to talk a little bit more about. But yeah, more importantly, speaking of talking about, we are talking about understanding your monitor's refresh rate and the impact it can have on your PC gaming, on your gaming experience. And I stand corrected, because not everybody who uses their PC plays video games. Although you could even be using video game like components, or close to video game hardware, for example, maybe like an 8700K or 7700K quad core, quad core Kaby Lake CPU. Shout out to the quad core. If you're still rocking a quad core and you hear it, let us know. But quad core is still very much popular choice among gamers, at least among Steam gamers who have opted into the Steam survey. Tricion says, "Yo guys, what's happening, Tricion? It's good to see you. You just now tuned in. We're talking about understanding your monitor's refresh rate, right? This is the novice edition. This topic could probably go on for hours, but I am going to try to cover areas that could benefit you in terms of when you're off shopping, or you're looking for, a new monitor, or you're upgrading your monitor. What are some key areas you should take into consideration, right? Because when it comes to monitors, when it comes to refresh rate, when it comes to your monitor's refresh rate, bigger is definitely better. 60 hertz is representing the bare minimum, right? But here recently, with the advancement in technology, we've had 120 hertz monitors for a while now. Then 144 became popular. Then 240 became like wow. And then now we have monitors up to 280 hertz with 1 millisecond response time. All these things we're going to talk about, right? Refresh rates, response time, adaptive synchronization technologies. All these things we're going to talk about here in this live show. So do be sure to stick around to the very end. And if you're here on the replay, right, one thing we like to do is shout out our replay viewers. Shout out to our replay viewers if you're here on the replay. I always shout you out whether you're here or not, because even if one viewer decided to stick around for the whole entire live show after it's already aired, that's pretty amazing in my honest opinion. And I do appreciate you for spending that time here on the channel. And I do appreciate everybody that's here with us right now. But, let's jump right into it. Let's jump right into it. And remember, if you have any questions about anything throughout the live show, do please feel free to ask at any time. But, what are some important factors, or here are 3 important factors you should consider when you are shopping for a monitor, whether that's buying brand new or upgrading your monitor, because you're maybe looking to, up your resolution. You're either looking to up your screen size or you're looking to, increase your refresh rate. All three of these areas are areas you should look over with great scrutiny when shopping for your monitor. And in this live stream, my goal is to better help you understand each 3 of these areas. Even if you're already well versed in, how monitor technologies work, still you may be able to add value to the conversation. So, and you still may never know. Like, I'm always, wherever there's information being shared, I'm there in the event that I can learn something new, right? Or maybe even better, help me better understand, my knowledge or area of expertise, right? And Bad Habit says, refresh rates and response time, please. Yes, definitely, man. We're going to dive into there, because we're going to talk about some pretty interesting things when it comes down to response time and refresh times, and how they go hand in hand. And response time is often overlooked. People see that, people look at, oh, it's 4K, or it's 2K, 1440p, or it has 120 hertz refresh rate, what have you. And we talked about like TN, right? That's twisted pneumatic panels. We talked about VA panels. We talked about IPS panels, in-plane switching panels, vertically aligned panels, and TN panels. We talked about the benefits of each 3. But if you remember, if you were here for that live show, if you were present during that live show, you remember we didn't necessarily talk about refresh rates and response time. That was more so on the focus of that live stream was more so on the monitor panel types and which one you may be, appropriate for your needs, either as a gamer and as a content creator. But 3 areas you should take into consideration when buying or upgrading your monitor, right? Like Tricion mentions, refresh rate equals more skill. And yes, that is true. And I have some examples of why that is, right? And overall, if you understand how refresh rates work and how monitors and just overall how monitors work in general, because in my opinion, they are machines on their own. And it's quite impressive, which they actually have slightly high power draws too, believe it or not. So, but yeah, resolution, screen size, and refresh rate, right? These three things, when you're buying a monitor, or maybe you just built your PC, or like Bad Habit mentions, I'm still on a 60 hertz monitor, which is fine, believe it or not. Like I would pull it up now, but I don't like to reference it all the time, so this may come off a bit contradictive. But I don't necessarily like to reference the Steam survey without the disclaimer of recognizing and acknowledging that it isn't entirely indicative of the PC gaming community, because you can opt out of the Steam survey, even if you may use Steam, or maybe you've never even knew about the Steam survey, and you just never had it, enabled this whole, your whole entire time. But if you look at the core Steam audience, which are, in my opinion, users who have opted in to the Steam survey, 60 hertz is very much still the popular refresh rate among gamers, right? Still very common. Everything else is considered, is considered enthusiast, if you will. Darkness Plays says, hi, what's happening, Darkness Plays? Welcome to the Inside the Lab weekly live Q&A. I believe we had the opportunity to talk, or I don't think this is your first time, but I stand corrected if it is. Welcome to the live stream. We're talking about refresh rates and how to better understand it if you are in the market for upgrading or buying a new monitor. Now, resolution. We're going to do a quick refresher, a quick primer, if you will. We're going to do a quick refresher, a quick primer, if you will. 1920 by 1080, most common, right? Let me switch here. Let me bring up our helpful chart here. This is kind of like a primer from that live stream, but we talked about resolutions, right? You have 1920 by 1080p, which again, referencing the Steam survey, is still the most popular resolution among gamers right now. 1440p is just starting to climb up to double-digit figures, with 4K barely in the 1 percentile of gamers. So it's very niche. But you have 1080p, which is clocking in at a little over 2 million pixels, right? It's like 2,073,000, something to that extent, right? For the sakes of simplicity and to keep it simple, we're just going to say an even 2 million, right? We'll round up. We'll round up. We'll round up. But 1080p is full HD, right? As you can see here on our chart. A little over 2 million pixels. Then you have 2560 by 1440p, and a resolution that is becoming more and more popular here as technologies advance and GPU, and GPU processes and what have you. The resolution is becoming more and more popular as you can, game at 1440p and on modest settings with a sub $300 card. The best PC to build in 2021. I'm sorry, nobody wants to be stuck in 2020. But the best PC to build in 2021 video we did, that was under $900. That we benchmarked that game at 1440p, and we benchmarked that system at 1440p, if you will. I'm sorry. And the 1660 Ti was able to handle, quad QHD at modest settings, at like medium settings, depending on the game. So the hardware to power the resolution at an affordable price is becoming more and more popular. But 1440p is my preferred resolution if I'm not gaming at 2160p for fully immersive games. But I personally game on 3440 by 1440p. But 2560 by 1440p is the sweet spot, and definitely, in my honest opinion, that's clocking in at a little over 3,700 or 3,700,000 pixels. Here we go, fam. I can't count today, but a little over 3 million pixels. So you get higher pixel density, better detail in your graphics or what have you, and then you have 2160p, 3840 by 2160p, which is 4K, which is coming in at 8 million pixels. So yeah, you get the idea of 4K and 2K, and then you have 1080p, which is just full HD. But your resolution is something you'll take into consideration. Your screen sizes, now, like Tricion mentioned, more refresh rate equals, makes you more competitive in so many words. And that's true. keep that in your back pocket because we're going to revisit that topic a few more times here in this conversation. Even if you don't play games competitively, you'd be surprised at how a high refresh rate can enhance your experience if you play single player games like myself, for example, but maybe they're fast paced or they're action paced story, first person games. I would say Cyberpunk, but Cyberpunk is still very much in optimized limbo right now. But Cyberpunk is the first one that comes to mind, or maybe like a Call of Duty campaign, if you will. I like playing the Call of Duty campaigns myself, and I know that Activision announced the next Call of Duty is coming up. Rumor has it it's going to be based off of Advanced Warfare 2. On a side note, I liked Advanced Warfare. I understand the multiplayer wasn't that great, but hey fam, I didn't play the multiplayer, right? So, but some of the most common and competitive sizes at 1080p is between 22 inches and 24 inches, and about the 144 hertz to 240 plus hertz range, right? For immersion and content creation, this is why I use a 3440 by 1440p monitor. It gives me a lot of space to have more than one window open when I'm editing or just working in Photoshop or working in Premiere or what have you. It's just amazing to have the extra width or the extra space on your left and right, and it really helps with gaming too when I'm playing Fortnite. But a common screen size for a monitor for content creation, 27 inches to 34 inches is a good spot to be in between. Like even my monitor is a 34-inch MSI optics Mag 34 1QC. So really that's a general good spot to be in because those monitors normally come in at a refresh rate of 100 to 120 hertz, with even some 2560 by 1440p monitors clocking in at a little past that at 144 hertz. Now, if you want more information on some of those different kind of monitors, that live stream I referenced earlier, you can find all the monitors we talked about in that live stream over in that description box below. So yeah, jumping back over, and let's jump now over to refresh rate and response time, right? That's why everybody's here. That's the core argument of or the core reason why we're all here. Now, if you have to understand how the refresh rate works or what it does, by definition, what it is. And let me jump here. All right, that's not it. 1 second. Here we go. All right, so your refresh rate is the number of times the monitor updates with new images each second. It's pretty interesting, right? It's pretty dope how computers work or how they process images to create moving objects, right? It's what I call the digital flip book, right? It's like a digital flip book. And on the subject of refresh rates, because something else we're going to talk about in this live stream, and that's G-Sync, FreeSync, and just overall adaptive sync in general, and how it works and how it goes hand in hand with your refresh rate, why it's important. Whoops. So, refresh rate, number of times the monitor updates with a new image each second. Did you know that essentially monitors, or video games, they're a digital flip book, right? I mean, all it is a whole bunch of images displaying fast. Rather, if you have a 60 hertz monitor, let's use Bad Habits monitor for an example. If you have a 60 hertz monitor, that means images are fanatically being displayed on your screen 60 times per second. You can scale that all the way up to 144, 100 or 240 times each second. Visual professions like content creation and game development, high refresh rates are invaluable. They are crucial. This is why most ultra-wide monitors, especially now, are coming in at a minimum of at least 100 hertz. I got mine about 3 years ago, and that's exactly what the refresh rate is on my monitor. It's at 100 hertz refresh rate. It works for me because I don't play games competitively, but even as I'm playing casually, it does give me a slight benefit, at least from what I can tell anyway, in my opinion. Let me jump over to the chat because I see Darkness Plays says right now I have a 75 hertz monitor. Okay, that's a good spot. That's a pretty decent spot to be in. Although it could be hard to tell the difference, say going from 60 hertz to 75 hertz, right? The difference may be negligible. But what resolution are you playing at, Darkness Plays? Is that 1080p? I imagine that'd be 1080p. And Bad Habit says we need Titanfall 3. Yeah, I wonder what the development status is on Titanfall 3. I imagine a lot of games have been unfortunately pushed back due to the global pandemic and everything that's going on. But I imagine Titanfall 3 would be definitely making a comeback, especially for newer end console hardware. They definitely would want that game on consoles. But interesting stuff. Yeah. But yeah, video games, essentially what I call the digital flip book. Okay? Or the interactive digital flip book. You see a solid visual on the screen, but what's actually happening is the screen is changing 60 times a second, 144 times a second, 240 times a second. It's like magic in my opinion. This is why I said computers within themselves are almost machines, because they have that job of displaying that image constantly. And the more image it's able to display, the smoother the gameplay. We're going to talk about that more, right? We're going to talk about that more. Actually, you know what? Let's dive into that subject a little deeper, starting with refresh rate, right? Again, arguably the reason why we're all here and why it is important to gamers, especially for competitive gamers, whether you play Fortnite, CS:GO, Warzone, right? Bad Habit says, sorry I said that when you were talking about COD. Didn't mean to get off subject. No, it's all good, Bad Habit. Arguably, I mean, in Titanfall 2, COD's essentially the same game for the most part. Maybe not. But it's all good, Bad Habit. Tricion says, when I switched to 75 hertz to 60, it improved my aim by a very surprising amount. Okay, so you dropped down from using a 75 hertz monitor to 60 hertz in improving your aim. Interesting. I wonder other variables to take into consideration, maybe mouse, maybe the type of mouse you're using, keyboard. Good stuff. But again, that's what's important to PC gaming, right? And just this hobby overall is finding and discovering what works for you in terms of hardware, right? But your refresh rate, a 60 hertz monitor. Let's use Bad Habits example once again, because a 60 hertz monitor refreshes the screen 60 times per second, right? We talked about that. It could be, 60, 140, but we're going to use 60 as a basic example. And I see Tricion, okay, he says 60 to 75 hertz. All right, yeah, I was about to say, I could see going from 60 to 75, helping out with aim. Yeah, I mean, I could see that. I was going to say the other way around. I'd be very shocked, getting diminishing returns from going to a slower refresh rate. But it's important to know, though. It's important to note, and this is something else we're going to talk about, that a 60 hertz monitor is only capable of outputting 60 FPS. So sometimes the two can get, sometimes the word or the term can be used incorrectly, where hertz will get confused with frames per second and FPS. They're essentially not the same thing. Your system could maybe output, let's use Fortnite for an example, right? Your system can maybe output, competitive settings, whatever that may be for you, but your system may be able to output 144 FPS on average on competitive settings. But let's say you're on a 75 hertz monitor. Your monitor is still only going to output, 75. It's only going to put out 75 frames per second. It's only going to refresh 75 frames per second. Now, if let's say you had a 120 hertz monitor, which is a good entry level if you're looking to get on a competitive scene, in my opinion. Maybe 144, and definitely if you kind of want to future proof your competitive workspace. But with a 120 hertz monitor, the entirety of every frame will be shown of those 144 FPS, right? So you would see the full 120 versus the 144 output. It's good to, in that case, leave G-Sync or FreeSync or any adaptive sync technology off, because your system is able to surpass your monitor's refresh rate. It's in my opinion that it's better to leave adaptive sync technology on, and adaptive sync is something we're going to talk about, further down in this live stream, in a couple, coming up in the next couple segments. But if your system is unable to, exceed your refresh rate, then it could benefit you to enable G-Sync or FreeSync. Not so much V-Sync, and we're going to talk about why that is, because the trade-offs aren't essentially worth it. If you're not experiencing jarring, screen tearing and stuttering and juddering and all those negative things and ghosting, if it's not too common in your games, it's better to leave VSync disabled. But technically you're seeing more. Let's go back to our 60 hertz example, because technically you're seeing a 60 FPS, but it's not progressive, right? Going from, say, a 60 hertz monitor to a 120 FPS monitor. If you're putting out 144 hertz, or if you're putting out 144 FPS on a 120 hertz monitor, it's all you're going to feel. That 120 FPS or that 120 hertz refresh rate, right? Even though your FPS is exceeding that, it's good to try to tweak your settings and achieve a average FPS that exceeds your monitor refresh rate. It can still feel smoother though to play, right? Let me fire up my example here, because like Triceon mentioned earlier in this live stream, how more refresh rates, a higher refresh rate can make you more competitive, and it's true, because it makes it gives you the opportunity to react and respond to your enemy before they're able to, only because your system has refreshed much faster than they're able to. It's in my opinion why console gamers have a slight competitive edge over console gamers when we have unlocked frame rates. But it can still feel smoother to play at a higher frame rate than what your monitor or display can output, because of input lag with your mouse will be reduced. And input lag is something we're going to talk about. And this is why I say you want to try to achieve an average FPS that exceeds your monitor. But as you can see here in our 60 hertz, 144 hertz, and 244 hertz example, with the soldier coming from behind the wall, with 240 hertz, you're able to, the 240 hertz panel has a slight advantage. Why? Because you're seeing that enemy faster, quicker. The display is refreshing at a higher rate. Now, you do need a system though to be able to output 240 hertz. Even in Fortnite, CS:GO, different story. Which it's still fascinating how CS:GO is still the most popular game on Steam right now. It's incredible. Like that that game has been dominating the Steam charts for quite a while now. But yeah, we're going to talk about why that is, in terms of how playing it could feel smoother to play at a higher frame rate than what your monitor can display. Input lag and latency being two of the biggest reasons why. And those things could start to introduce, if you're playing beyond your screen, it's important to note that if you're playing beyond your monitor's refresh rate, you can introduce things like screen tearing and screen tearing and ghosting, just a few other things. I'll tell you what, let's talk about it, because with screen tearing is what your monitor is rendering frames, or your hardware is rendering frames faster than your monitor can display them. If you ever experience screen tearing, you know how it can take you out of the experience of the game, right? Like it's not very good. It's just not a very good experience, right? And I have another example here. You can see too, on a 240 hertz display versus a 144 hertz display versus a 60 hertz display, right? The 240 hertz display has lower latency. The images are refreshing faster, and it's enabling you to respond quicker, right? This is why a high refresh rate can make you more competitive, right? Now, response time also plays a role in refresh rates, right? What is response time? Because response time is another area of confusion I see amongst the community. Now, response time is essentially the time it takes for a pixel to change colors, right? So you have how many images, you have your refresh rate, which is going to how many images can be displayed per second, but then you have your response time is how long it takes for those pixels to change colors. Now, a good rule of thumb, lower number versus a higher number reflects a faster change or higher performance. This is what you want, because this also plays a role in latency. That matters for fast-paced visuals, right? Or, fast-paced visuals matters for competitive gaming. Higher refresh rates and faster pixel response times also dramatically reduce ghosting. Uh, I recommend 1 millisecond response time monitors. A few that actually we picked out for this live stream that we're going to kind of slowly glance over and talk about. But when slower tech is used in high-paced action sequences, there may be trailing images, and that is essentially ghosting, right? Like, it's better to show an example, but if you're an experienced gamer and you've played on high-end hardware and maybe like a lower-end hardware monitor, you've likely experienced this. Is when your visuals get a little blurry, and you kind of see this ghosting-like effect with your character or your avatar. It can really take you out of the experience when you're gaming. This is why response time is important. Having a monitor with a low response time and a high refresh rate is a good area to start. Monitor with a high refresh rate, low response time. So let's use our 144 hertz example, because in my opinion, if you're ready to take it to the next level and you want to emerge on the competitive scene, you may want to start with a 144 hertz monitor. 120 might, do you good if you're cash strapped and you want to start on a modest budget, right? But 144 hertz could really help you gain a competitive edge and help you level up your stream. If you could be a streamer beyond engaging in the competitive scene. Triceon says, "Yeah, I have that sometimes." Yeah, so Triceon experiences ghosting. So it's a perfect segue into the next segment, because something that could help with screen tearing, ghosting, right, Triceon, is using an adaptive sync. Rather you have a G-Sync enabled monitor, or a more commonly FreeSync enabled monitor, and V-Sync, which is generally by default, right, the graphics technology that comes with most monitors, right? If it's not a gaming monitor, which gaming monitors, in order to be even marketed as a gaming monitor, they have to have a variable refresh rate and an adaptive refresh rate. So they have to have some type of adaptive synchronization. And fancy terminology aside, it's just how your monitor, aligns itself with the frame rate of your GPU. It was essentially developed as a way to deal with screen tearing, stuttering, and judder, and ghosting. Screen tearing, again, which is when your screen displays portions of multiple frames, which, let's bring up our example here, right? Now, again, some of you may or may not have experienced this. If you have, tell us down in the comment section if you have. I know Triceon has shared that he's experienced ghosting, but adaptive tech can help eliminate these things, especially with screen tearing. Triceon says that's true, but it sadly causes longer latency. Yeah, especially, and to fast forward a little bit, that's essentially one of the biggest downsides to VSync, is the introduction of higher latency is not worth, it's not worth having to deal with screen tearing, right? Like, if anything, what I would recommend is adjust your settings. Try to find a way to get below your monitor's refresh rate so you won't have to deal with screen tearing, especially if latency is an issue. But yeah, I found that interesting, that in order for a gaming monitor to be advertised as a gaming monitor, that it must support a variable and an adjustable refresh rate. Why? Because that's one of the most important aspects for gamers, right? Is having a high refresh rate and frame rate output. They go hand in hand. They're not the same, right? But they go hand in hand. It's very important that you understand, the difference between the two when shopping for your monitor. But yeah, screen tearing is one of the most common issues when it comes to your hardware outputting or exceeding your monitor's refresh rate. If you're on a 60 hertz monitor and you're on like anything above maybe a 1070, in my opinion, a 1060 would probably be a good pairing. But if you're 1070, 1080, 1080 Ti on a 60 hertz panel, you're almost definitely, certainly could possibly be experiencing screen tearing, ghosting, and maybe even stuttering in your games. Consider, if you're ready to upgrade, consider a monitor with G-Sync. They can be a little bit more expensive, right? They can. With FreeSync becoming more and more popular and more reliable for adaptive sync technology. So, look at your reviews and monitor, or consider reviews when shopping. Monitor reviews is something I would like to get into with 2021, but monitors are an expensive bunch, so we'll see. Bad Habit says, I'm pretty sure I've experienced all the negative aspects of not having a gaming monitor. I've been using my Best Buy Sharp 60 hertz TV for gaming. Yeah, and TVs normally have, very high response times, so they could feel like a little laggy. And when you're gaming on a TV, I imagine, Bad Habit, you've probably experienced a lot of ghosting and a lot of like blurry images. If you play fast-paced games, first-person shooters, maybe not RPGs, slow burn RPGs like Skyrim, maybe even The Witcher 3. But um, yeah, consider Bad Habit a monitor upgrade possibly here in the upcoming months or even weeks. We have a few that we're going to go over here as soon as we segue into the third block here on the stream. And I see we had a couple more people join in. If you're just joining in, we're talking about, you know, ways that you can better understand your monitor's refresh rate. We've talked about three aspects to take into consideration when shopping for a monitor. That's resolution, 1080p, 1440p, 2160p, refresh rate, bare minimum of 60 hertz, like we just was discussing with Bad Habit, who says I'm using a 60 hertz monitor. And I believe it was Darkness Plays that said they're using a 75 hertz monitor. If you're here on a live stream or you just joined us, tell us down in the chat what the refresh rate of your monitor is, or if you're looking to buy a monitor here, if you're in the market for a monitor and you're not sure what refresh rate, screen size, and resolution may be a right fit for your needs, tell us up here in the chat, tell us down in the comment section if you're here on the replay, and tell us here now in the live chat if you're able to be here with us live, which I definitely appreciate you spending your glorious Saturday here with us. Bad Habit says, yes, I'm in the market for a new monitor, content creation / gaming. Awesome. So yeah, once we go over some of the examples here in this live stream, but full disclaimer, I excluded 1440p simply because it's still very niche, but a lot of the things we discuss here is still applicable to a higher resolution, no matter if it's 1080p, 1440p, or 2160p. Excuse me. It's just once you start upping the resolution, you start, increasing your budget. You may have to increase your budget because then the monitors become a little bit more expensive. Also, with monitors that either don't have G-Sync or do have G-Sync, you do have to pay the G-Sync premium. So you have to ask yourself, is adaptive synchronization technology something that's going to be important to, let's use Bad Habits example. Is it going to be important for content creation and gaming? Absolutely. As I'd imagine you yourself, Bad Habit Bad Habit may want to consider an ultra wide monitor. Bad Habits are basic. Basic is good to see it. Welcome to the live stream. I believe this is your first time we had the opportunity to chat. So welcome to the weekly live Q&A show. If this is your first time, I do welcome you to like the stream. And if you're not yet here, a member in the community, definitely subscribe with the notification bell on. We go live every Saturday. I see Basic says VGA or IPS for gaming. Mine is the Asus 144 hertz VGA. Is that you mean a VA panel? For IPS, I recommend IPS for high refresh rate and low response time, and for sharper image clarity. VA vertically aligned panels, depending on your angle, they have their downsides, but they're normally the most cost effective. They have slightly higher response times. It could depend, Basic, on the type of games you play, or if you're looking to play competitively. But to answer your question more specifically, what I'd recommend is IPS for gaming. Right, you said you use a Asus 144 hertz. What model? What's the model you use? And maybe we'll look it up here. Right? But yeah. I tell you what, let's segue into some of the examples, because some of you has shared that you deal with screen tearing, or you deal with ghosting, right? Bad habits in the market for a new monitor. Basic is using a 144 hertz Asus monitor, which is awesome, right? Asus makes some incredible monitors. Yeah, I see. You meant VA. I figured as much. VGA is a cord, old school cord. But yeah, definitely would, like I mentioned, if you caught that, basic, and I know we're on a slight delay, but what I recommend is IPS for gaming, especially if you're competitively gaming, if your budget can afford you so. We're going to go over a few examples here, coming up in the next segment, that are both IPS, which means in-plane switching panel, which is slightly faster than a vertically aligned panel. Um, the two definitely compensates, but here recently IPS panels have improved drastically and also has reduced in price. So that's a great trade-off. Great trade-off. The Mrs. Zombify, it's good to see you. The Mrs. Zombify said, "What's up, all?" It's good to see you, Mrs. Zombify. We are discussing refresh rates and how to better understand your refresh rate to enhance or level up your experience as a PC gamer or as a content creator. Right? We talked about the three important areas that you should look over with great scrutiny when buying or upgrading your monitor, and that's your resolution, your screen size, and your refresh rate slash response time. They're essentially a twin pair, if you will, with a little slight bonus to adaptive synchronous type or adaptive sync technology. I can't say it today, Mrs. Zombified, but it's good to see Mrs. Zombified is a regular here on the live show. We got a lot of regulars that are tuning in for us today. Awesome stuff. Do appreciate you, coming in. But again, we were talking about uh, refresh rates, response times, how it's important to leveling up your experience, and what it means uh, to be able to play on a high refresh rate. It's something we haven't really discussed much on this topic. And let me switch back here because it's something we haven't really discussed. But console games, especially here recently in the future, have always been locked to 30 FPS, right? Even if you're playing on a 60 hertz TV, the game is still only going to output 30 frames, and that was if you were lucky. Like, I know I played on OG Xbox, and the most I knew I was getting at the time was probably single digit FPS. Like, it was horrible. It was like a flip book. And on the side note, we talked about why having a higher refresh rate can make you more competitive or can help you give you a competitive edge. And that's because, put in that perspective, if you played on a console, right, or if you've seen some of the Cyberpunk 2077 videos where it's running on a PS4 or OG Xbox, and it looks real stuttery, right? That's because games are a digital flip book. And so once that frame rate starts to drop, it starts to look real choppy. Hence the term, my game, my gameplay is choppy, like it's stuttering. It feels like it's lagging, is what you hear the term, but it's not really lag. It's not lag. Okay, it's not lag. It's your frame rate dropping. Right. I had the pleasure of experiencing this. I've used this example plenty of times, but that's because I was really enjoying playing Mad Max on the Xbox, and every time the frame rate would drop into single digits, it just really took me out of the experience because the game relied on precise movements. And if you played Mad Max, it plays a lot like the Arkham games. I believe it's the same developer that made them. Don't quote me on that. But I believe it's the same developer that made the Arkham games, and it plays a lot like the Arkham games. So it relies on, fast input. It relies counter, dodge, block, punch, duck, dodge, dip. Shout out to Dodgeball. Tell us out if you chat if you've seen Dodgeball. But yeah, I mean, games, they are the digital flip book. And so once that flip book starts to drop in frames, it starts to get real choppy, and then the hand that's turning the pages starts to slow down. And then reality breaks, and you realize it's all just fast-paced images moving. Wow. It's amazing how monitor technology works and how important it is to when you're shopping for a PC, right? We talked about this in all of our PC builds and even in some of our VODs, right? Which, if you're new here, we do weekly videos here on the channel. The Asus ROG Strix RTX 3090 benchmark video, I would like to try to get that out by Friday, by Thursday. I've had a blast playing around with it, and the performance level is incredible. I haven't even jumped into 1440p yet because the 4K results are more than playable even at max settings, and so it's really jarring right now. But that video is in the works, and I look to have that published next week. So do be on the lookout for that video if you don't have notifications enabled, or if you're not yet on the email list. If you missed the housekeeping segment and you just joined us and you're not yet on the email list, join. Don't go now because you'll leave the live stream, and YouTube may think that the live stream is not all that great. So don't leave now, but after the live stream, join the email list if you haven't yet, because uh, when that goes out, more updates to the community, as we slowly roll out more emails is what I meant. Basic says use FreeSync for competitive gaming or leave it off. That's a great question, Basic. So early in the live stream, I had mentioned that if your hardware is able to exceed your monitor's refresh rate, I recommend leaving any adaptive sync technology off. G-Sync, FreeSync, especially V-Sync. Ignore V-Sync altogether, right? Like Triceon added that it introduces high, it really does a number on your latency, right? And introduces input lag that'll just, it kind of goes against the idea of wanting to even use wanting to use adaptive sync technology, right? You'll have a delay based off of it. So what I recommend is leaving it off if your monitor is able to exceed, or if your hardware is able to exceed your monitor's refresh rate. Turn it on if you're unable to exceed your monitor's refresh rate. And that way, let's say you have a 75 hertz monitor, right? And Basic, tell us what kind of games you play, right? Do you play like Fortnite? Do you play competitive games? Do you play competitively? Because if you're playing competitively, I'm a competitor by heart, right? Like I've shot hoops, I've played football on Thanksgiving, I've played Madden, right? I've done it. And I'm competitive, so any edge I can get, if it was on the court and I know I can get in the other guy or other girl's head while we're playing, then to me that's a competitive edge, right? I'm taking you out of your element, I'm taking you out of your game. You want every competitive edge, whatever you're doing, you want the competitive edge. I meant whatever you're doing competitively. Turn it on if you can't exceed that 75 hertz refresh rate. Turn on FreeSync or turn on G-Sync. If you're able to exceed 75 hertz because your hardware permits it and is able to output, an FPS surpassing that refresh rate, leave it off. Bad Habit says, so is VSync a NVIDIA and G-Sync AMD or vice versa? Does it depend on the video card that you're using? Bad Habit, thank you for asking that question, because that's a very important question that we were going to dive in further down the live stream, but I'm going to answer it now because that is very important. AMD, and I tell you what, let's jump back over here, because NVIDIA is actually G-Sync and AMD is FreeSync. But essentially, the technology is all the same. It's all adaptive sync. It's just G-Sync's brand, NVIDIA's brand, is a little bit more robust. It's a little bit more defined. AMD's is open source, so it's essentially available to all monitor manufacturers, right? But G-Sync is an NVIDIA adaptive sync technology. Now, a couple years ago, it was only exclusively available to monitors that NVIDIA approved of having the G-Sync module, because monitors with G-Sync on them, they have proprietary boxes on the monitor themselves that allows the monitor to sync up with the NVIDIA GPU. So yes, you do need an NVIDIA GPU to use G-Sync, but here recently NVIDIA has enabled G-Sync on FreeSync panels. It's not on all of them. It could be very tricky ground. What I recommend is, if you want G-Sync, shop for a G-Sync monitor, one that's already received the NVIDIA certification to enable G-Sync. AMD does require you to have an AMD graphics card or Radeon graphics card if you want to benefit from FreeSync. And so it does depend on your graphics card, right? It definitely does. If you want to use G-Sync, if you want to take full advantage of G-Sync, you want to use an NVIDIA graphics card. If you want to take full advantage of AMD's FreeSync technology, because it could save you a little bit more, G-Sync monitors, you are paying for that G-Sync premium, fam. Like, the cost is, you can definitely feel the difference in terms of cost. This is why I'm excited that FreeSync 2.0 is starting to become more relevant, and AMD's Radeon division is actually giving us graphics cards in the form of the RX 6000 series, although they are, you know, really hard to find. On Twitter, if you're not following me on Twitter, which I welcome you to follow me on Twitter if you're here on the replay or if you're here live. I know most of you do follow me on Twitter, but on Twitter I had shared a screenshot from Micro Center where they had a 6800 XT. It was an add-in board partner variant, but it was about 13. It cost 13% more than a 6900 XT. So you have to ask yourself, if a 6900 XT, right? Because I asked myself this: if a 6900 XT was available, I have $1,200 to drop on a GPU, even if it is an add-in board, variant, right? Which the reference 69 and 6800 XTs look fine in my honest opinion, better than they have before. But if I have $1,200 to drop on a GPU, instead of going for the 6800 XT, I'd go for the $1,000 6900 XT. But it's not available. Doesn't matter. But with the RX 6000 series, FreeSync is becoming more and more relevant. So hopefully with the 6700, it's coming. Fam, it's coming. That's the graphics card on the lower end. I really want to do a lot of work with. I think their AMD is going to come in with some smashing GPUs in the form of the 6600 XT and 6700 XT high VRAM. Remember we talked about VRAM is the new buzzword and the new marketing buzzword going forward was CPUs, but AMD made cores popular. CPU, everybody wants cores now. 12 core, 6 core, 16 core mainstream desktop CPUs. It's incredible what AMD has done there with cores, and now here Radeon's doing it with VRAM although it's weird because the 6800 XT and the 6900 XT have the same amount of VRAM. So yeah, I couldn't get my hands on the 6900 XT for myself personally, so to create content, or I guess if you will, high-end content, if you will, I went with the RTX 3090, but certainly not done there. I mean, that's not even a graphics card I'd recommend for a core of you here in this community or in this audience. This Mrs. Amfi says, I was looking at the LG 48-inch OLED for a monitor, but burn-in is still a thing, and that's a little big, so I don't know. And yeah, with higher, and especially with TVs, when you're going that high, you start to lose some of the pixel depth or some of your pixel density, if you will. Say playing on a 48-inch monitor, if you play on a 24-inch monitor, the image may look a little better because as opposed to the pixels being stretched out and losing pixel densities, they're more compact, so the image is sharper. This is why competitive gamers opt for 22-inch and 24-inch size monitors to game on, right? Because you get better image quality, sharper image quality. A larger, a TV, if you will, is okay for casual viewing, especially if you use your PC to like stream movies, or it's a family media device, right? Or a virtual machine, or you use it for your consoles. Maybe you play your console in there and you stream from your PC. I mean, they're fine, but you get the full benefit of low latency and low input lag when you're playing on a high refresh rate, high response time monitor, which are more robust because, again, gaming monitors have a different certification process they have to pass in order to be considered a gaming monitor. The technology has to come with adaptive synchronization or adaptive tech and adaptive variable refresh rates. And I see the Mrs. Amplify says it's a little big, so I don't know. Yeah, I mean, size is definitely something to take into consideration too, depending on your setup, right? Some of us game in the living room, which is fine, that's perfect. Or some of us have, office space or a spare bedroom you convert it into your gaming room. So you may have one desk. Definitely take into consideration your screen size. A 48-inch TV requires a lot of space, and depending on how close you play, may not be all that immersive, right? You may want to consider playing a little bit further away, so that way the images appear. You have more detail in your images and more details in your games, or whatever it is you're doing. If you're watching movies too, but yeah. So NVIDIA, G-Sync, AMD, FreeSync, adaptive sync technology all together, and overall, what if you weren't here for that segment where we talked about adaptive sync technology? I mean, it's awesome how it works, but it marries or couples your frame rate, right? The amount of frames your hardware is outputting with your monitor's refresh rate. G-Sync is compatible with NVIDIA graphics cards. FreeSync compatible with AMD graphics cards. V-Sync, we say just ignore altogether. Demetrius, it's good to see you. Demetrius says, "Yo, what's up, champ? It's good to see you. It's been a while, but welcome to our live stream, bro. We are talking about adaptive sync technologies, right? And how to better understand your monitor's refresh rate and the impact it could have on your gaming experience, or I tell you what, even on your viewing experience, right? Or, right? Like I know Demetrius, you're a professor, so you maybe want quality and richness in your text, right? Maybe you want a wide monitor so you can have more than one program up as well. The Mrs. Amify says, my desk is 32 inches wide by 72 inches long. Wow, I have the room. That's a nice size desk, and that's kind of like where I would like to be. Like I like a lot of real estate, but here this part where I host a show, it's a core part of the lab here. So I make best use of the space. But here recently, with the course, with testing the RTX 3090, I've been playing on a lower level, which is a little bit wider space, which is awesome nonetheless. But yeah, nice. It's good to see you, Demetrius. Welcome, welcome, welcome. So, but yeah, adaptive sync again helps with screen tearing. It's when your screen displays portions of multiple frames in one go, so it starts like overlapping each other. It can be really frustrating to deal with. When I first got into PC gaming, I was playing or modern PC gaming. I had picked up a 1050 Ti just because I wanted to, get my hands with it. It was one of the popular lower entry options because it was competing with the RX 570 and 470. I was playing Wolfenstein, the Colossus or Shadow, something like that. One of them. I believe it was the second Wolfenstein. And I was dealing with some serious screen tearing. It was driving me crazy. I actually had to lower or increase the settings, if you will, to try and compensate for that performance because it definitely was taking me out of the experience of the game. And Demetrius says, I need a graphics card for a Dell 7010 SFF, small form factor, for my arcade cabinet PC. I modded an arcade one up to a main room, a ROM machine. The kids is loving it. Let me know if you have a card for sale, please. Nothing too serious. Nice. Okay, that's awesome. Now remember, I saw some of your journey in creating that over on Facebook. Me and Demetrius are Facebook friends, and I remember seeing you document that experience, and that's awesome to repurpose your Dell that way. I will definitely get back to you because I may have or could put you in the right direction to find a graphics card right now because it could be a little tricky. And you probably want something that's just power efficient and could just maybe display some video. But awesome. Yeah, it's good to see you too, Demetrius. So while we're talking about monitors, adaptive sync technology, and all what have you, all those things are great and all. But what are some good choices for a well-rounded monitor? Again, we talked about how 22 inch to 24 inch could be, or I say 22 inches to 24 to 27, 1080p, one of the most common, right, to start with. And we're going to start with the BenQ. Now, very popular amongst the community, right? I see a lot of different users on BenQ monitors. 75 hertz, $109. Not bad. Why? 1 millisecond response time. What has Lab been saying all day? Lightning fast game performance. You want that. 1 millisecond response time. Oh, and like I also said, also has taking into consideration its power draw too. But yeah, the BenQ 24-inch 1080p monitor, 75 hertz, quote, for gaming. Gotta get that marketing buzzword in there. But at $109, it's not that bad, right? It's great entry level if you're just wanting to get into PC gaming. 75 hertz is also, and we talked a lot about competitive gaming because single player games don't necessarily require high refresh rates. I mean, they're good to have if you play games like Watch Dogs Legion or maybe even Assassin's Creed, which Assassin's Creed Valhalla is poorly optimized. I'm not sure if I'm going to include it in the benchmarks. I mean, I want to, and I've been testing it, but I'm like, I had to do research to make sure I wouldn't, maybe my car wasn't performing right. But man, Assassin's Creed Valhalla is not very well optimized, as most Assassin's Creed games are. Watch Dogs Legion, though, ironically, performs really well at 4K on the RTX 3090. But for 75 hertz gaming, depending on your graphics card, if you're like between a 1060 and a 1070, this monitor would actually be really beneficial and would really complement your system. Right? The price is low. You get that 1 millisecond response time. So it's going to, your gaming performance is going to feel fast. Again, your response time is how quickly it takes for pixels to change color. And between your refresh rate, refreshing, in this case, it'd be 75 times a second. So again, if you have, maybe you're outputting, maybe on average 85, 90 at max settings on Fortnite, right? Maybe you're on a 1660 Super or a 1660 Ti or a 1650 Super, maybe somewhere in between there. Again, this monitor doesn't come with G-Sync, but it'd be better to just leave any adaptive sync technology off. I'm actually seeing I doubt it even has FreeSync, but most likely comes with V-Sync. Is, again, in order to be classified as a gaming monitor, you have to have some sort of adaptive variable refresh rate. V-Sync is just kind of the standard. It's just kind of like the basic minimum. But BenQ, one thing when I'm shopping on Amazon too, fam, what I recommend, definitely check out the ratings. Like, clearly, this is very popular among the community. At 4.5 stars, that says a lot about a product. Bad Habit says it's nice to see these monitors are pretty affordable. Yeah, and this is just 1080p. Like we talked about, 1440p and how affordable those monitors could be, right? But I mean, this is 1080p and this is 75 hertz, 1 millisecond response time monitor. And generally between 22-inch, 24-inch, and 27-inch monitors at 1080p with refresh rates between 60 to 75 hertz, you will find that they retail for about $90 to $120. Even in the examples I have outlined today for this, this criteria to be in, again, to about 22 inch to 27 inches and between 60 to 75 hertz. So not quite over 100, right? Maybe you're hardware limited. So you need to, hover way under 100, maybe somewhere between 80 and 90 or 70 and 90, somewhere between there. Maybe you're hovering in terms of what the maximum frames your system can output. Maximum is important, right? Because you want to try to exceed your monitor's refresh rate, something we talked about earlier in the live stream. But yeah, monitor prices have come down a lot, even with our next monitor that we're going to showcase here, and that's the Spectre E225W. It's an ultra thin 75 Hz 1080p LED monitor, right? $84, right? A little older, came out in 2018. But $75 is 22 inches, so likely more akin to someone on a competitive scene, or maybe you're super strapped for cash. This one doesn't have the price next to it, but if you click on see all buying options, price went up a little bit. Wow. So I stand corrected. This monitor was $84, but gives you a good idea of, once you jump up to screen size. 24-inch nets you $119. So it's what, $10 more than the BenQ monitor we just looked at? The BenQ 24-inch monitor? About $10 more. But still, 75 hertz. Just incredible. Incredible. You can feel, in my opinion, going from 60 to 75 hertz, right? Going from a 60 hertz to a 75 hertz display, it can be tricky to feel the difference. But like Triceon, another member here in the community, mentioned, it could help you improve in other areas on a competitive scene. Maybe you want to aim better. It'll help you with better input or what have you. Again, good to exceed your monitor's refresh rate. Or you're able to do that. You're able to reduce input lag. You may introduce screen tearing. Excuse me. You may introduce screen tearing. You may introduce juddering and stuttering, but this is where adaptive sync technologies could help if it's in your budget and you're able to afford it or compensate for that. As you can see here, this Spectra 27-inch gaming monitor comes with FreeSync, so it'll cost a little higher too. And then let me give you another example here at the $100 price, because these monitors all fall under the $90 to $120 price range. Like, I wanted to be specific to that because if you're building a modest machine, even with the PC we built in January or towards the end of last year for 2021 with the 2600X and a 1660 Ti, that system altogether came to about $829. So you figure if you wanted to, you could have your monitor, your keyboard, mouse for about under $1,000. You'd be somewhere about there, depending on taxes and other things to take into consideration. But between 21-inch to 24-inch, 75 hertz, this is a little exceeding that price, but you do have other features, right? Pivot, swivel, tilt, all that good jazz. But this is actually a pretty good monitor. I like the Asus monitors, big fan. Bad Habit says these monitors look like Lamborghinis. The monitors look like a house. Please ignore the last two comments. My silly daughter got on my keyboard. It's all good. Well, hello to your silly daughter. And I didn't even notice him. That's awesome. You gotta love kids, man. They're special. You gotta love them. But yeah, see, so you can find an affordable monitor if you want to hover in between that 60 hertz to 75 hertz price range. But let's say you want to take it up and you're ready to jump in on a competitive level, and you're saying, you know what, that's all good and well, Laugh Fan, but I got ambitions, right? I wanna win some Fortnite Cups, or I want to compete CS:GO or Call of Duty Warzone, whatever your choice of game may be. Expect for a 1080p 144 hertz plus monitor, right? You would imagine you're going to be somewhere between $160 to $299 price range. That's for monitors in between 24 inches to about 27 inches, and that's with a refresh rate of between 120 to 144 hertz. Still not bad though. As you can see here, 144 hertz. This Acer 144 hertz monitor with a 1 millisecond response time, $200. I mean, that's incredible. That's going to give you an incredible gaming performance. Even if you don't play competitively, like even if you play Call of Duty and you're like myself and you're like, I like the campaign. I do like the Call of Duty campaign. I recognize it's very, niche, and that ain't for everybody, but it's fun to me. And to go back to the BenQ, because it's a little under $200 and competing with that, with that Acer monitor. But this BenQ Zowie. I'm always not sure if I'm pronouncing it right. But again, 144 hertz monitor, low response time, okay? Under $200. And it's from a well-known brand, BenQ. I mean, they've really popped up on the scene and delivered some really quality monitors here. Highly recommended by the community. The last 22-inch BenQ monitor we looked at, 7,000 plus ratings and 4.5 stars. This one too, almost 4,000 ratings, 4.5 stars at 144 hertz. So again, maybe you have some old hardware lying around. That's something we talked about in last week's live stream. Which, if you're interested in giving last week's live stream a watch, you can find the most recent live stream playlist in the description box, aka the basement. But $179. If you have old hardware sitting around, imagine what a $179 upgrade can do for your system right now, right? Or like Bad Habit mentioned, they're still on a 60 hertz monitor. Going from a 60 hertz monitor to a 144 hertz monitor is day and night, and it would cost you almost less than what a modest graphics card would even cost you right now, right? Or maybe you can pick up a 1070, a used 1070 for about $220 right now. Adjust your settings, and this monitor comes with some aerodynamic features, which you gotta love. But yeah, it's marketed today as the ultimate esports experience, but I'd caution anything that's marketed as the ultimate anything, right? It's a well-used buzzword, but And then one last monitor I want to take a look at, if I will, and recommend. And I want to remind you that if you're interested in learning more about any of these monitors discussed right now during this live show, you can find links to all of them in the description box below. They are affiliate links, full disclosure, but you can find them all in the description box below should you want to learn more about any of these monitors we are discussing right now. And this Acer Nitro, I kind of like the aesthetics looks of this monitor over the BenQ monitor. But again, 1 millisecond response time, right? 75 hertz refresh rate. So while not 144, right? Still very much a monitor that has a lot of features and has FreeSync. So more than likely why it costs a little bit more. So if you're on an AMD GPU, right, and you want to take full advantage of, if you want to take full advantage of FreeSync, you're going to pay a little bit more. As this monitor costs more than the 144 hertz BenQ monitor we looked at, or it costs the same for a much lower refresh rate. But yeah, still not a bad option to pick up. And then if you want to say level up to the next possible, resolution, 24 to 27 inch, again, trying to stay below 30, because at that point, you're in the market for a monitor for maybe a content creation workflow. Maybe you edit music, maybe you edit videos, what have you. But for 1080p, 24 and 22 inch to up to 27 inches is a really good spot to be in. And let's say you're like, I'm on 144 hertz monitor, or I'm on 120 hertz monitor, or I'm on a 75 hertz monitor even, and you outgrown those refresh rates, and you're looking for a little more. Maybe you've upgraded your hardware, maybe you've upgraded your GPU, and you're ready to take it to the next level. You're ready to pay on a 240 hertz monitor. Now, I've only experienced a high refresh rate monitor of 240 hertz in a Micro Center. I have no need for such a high refresh rate monitor. But in our example we showed earlier, the difference between latency between 60 hertz and 144 hertz and 240 hertz is definitely noticeable. Definitely noticeable. And you would even feel the difference from going from a 144 hertz monitor to a 244 hertz monitor. Viotech is popping up on the scene. I'm not sure if you're familiar with Viotech or the brand. I haven't seen too many negative or even read too many negative reviews on the Viotech brand. This 240 hertz 1080p monitor, $299. FreeSync, low response time, 1 millisecond, $299. That's 240 hertz. So again, imagine if you have old hardware laying around, or you upgrade your graphics card. Let's say you upgrade your graphics card, and what should I do with my old graphics card? Sell it. Imagine if you could sell your graphics card $120, $150. Put that towards saying upgrading towards a monitor of this caliber, right? Or you say, I have a little extra deep pockets and I'm ready to even go a bit further than that, right? And you want a monitor with G-Sync. Well, remember we talked about that G-Sync Premium? Not as bad here. Asus Tough Gaming. If I were to recommend a monitor for competitive gaming and you have the coin, maybe say you're like a $1,500 budget, and you really want to jump on the competitive scene, the Asus Tough Gaming VG279QM. Fascinating monitor. Low response time, G-Sync compatible. So again, you want an NVIDIA graphics card, right? And 280 hertz. It's insane. I can only imagine, like, it would probably even feel, it would be too fast for me. I don't play competitive games, but just from understanding how games like Overwatch and even Fortnite, like 280 hertz must feel jarring, or at least it would for me, but maybe not for you if that's what you would need. Now, here's what G-Sync could still help you benefit. Let's say you're not able to exceed that 280 hertz, right? Let's say you're at like 200, 220. You definitely would want to turn on G-Sync in this instance, or unless you're playing CSGO, which can essentially run on a potato, and even on higher end hardware, it's nothing that it's not hard, if you will. I mean, to even be able to surpass 500 FPS on average on a game like CSGO, and even then, you definitely want to just leave leave G-Sync off, just turn it off and let your hardware do its thing. But this monitor, wow. If I wanted to get into competitive gaming, I would try to put my money in the hardware that matters the most. Your graphics card, right? Your GPU and your monitor. Those two are going to give you the edge you're looking for with wanting to jump on the competitive scene. right? This is why most competitive gamers play on PCs. And then last but not least, the Aorus. Let's jump here. Let's go over here. The Fi25F or Fi25F, but it's 240 hertz. It's not expensive, but I had threw this in because if you're like me and you just like a good looking monitor and you're okay with paying that premium, here's one of them. And Aorus makes some pretty impressive looking hardware to begin with. Like I like their gunmetal gray and black aesthetic, along with the Alienware WD 120 hertz ultra wide monitor. But if you want to like hey, feel good and look good while gaming, the Aorus Fi25F 240 hertz 1080p NVIDIA G-Sync compatible monitor. Look at the response time, fam. 0.4 milliseconds. So the action, everything is going to feel incredibly fast paced. Your colors are going to change quickly. It's going to create just an amazing experience, right? But this monitor is a little pricey. You are paying for that G-Sync premium, right? Something to take into consideration. But the features you're getting with this monitor, well worth it, right? Like well worth it, in my honest opinion. And again, if you want to, if you're interested in learning about any of these products or any of these monitors we just got done discussing, you can find each link down in the description box below or down in the comment box, description box, aka the basement. Come on, guys. But yeah, if you're just now joining us, welcome. I see we had a few friends who just joined in. Tell us where you're watching from. We're discussing how important it is to understand your monitor's refresh rate and the impact it could have on your gaming experience. We talked about 3 areas you should take into consideration, or when buying a monitor, you should take into consideration when buying a monitor, upgrading, right, for the first time, or maybe you're a first-time builder, first-time buyer, right? First-time builder, first-time buyer. Maybe you're first-time builder, first-time buyer, and you're like, man, I have I have the funds, I have the budget, I can maybe drop a cool grand on a system. What kind of monitor should I pair with that hardware? Because if you're in that $1,000 territory, you're likely on a higher end graphics card, so you want to make sure you are pairing it with a monitor that's going to be able to complement that hardware, or hardware that's going to be able to complement the monitor, right? If you're on an RTX 2060, maybe you want a 1080p 144 hertz monitor or 120 hertz monitor. If you want RTX 2070, right, or for high frame rates, or if you're leveling up to the next resolution, right, and you're bumping it up to the next resolution, 1440p or 4K puts you in a higher price tiers. You definitely want to make sure you have the adequate hardware to power that resolution, as things can get a little cumbersome on your hardware with trying to render so many pixels with so much detail. Bad Habit says 1080s are pretty affordable now. Seems like people are moving towards 1440p and 4K. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the GTX 1080, right up there, a fantastic card, and it's great for competitive gaming, right? Like you mentioned, especially if you're willing to level up to 1440p or maybe even 4K. Now, I did test my 1080 out in 4K. I would say that I necessarily didn't say it was playable. Playable could very much be different between you and I. Me personally, 60 is what I like to try to be at, but overall, don't matter. Like, there's no set number, right? I like to just be able to match my monitor's refresh rate or to be able to exceed it in the type of games I play. I definitely was not able to do that on a 1080 at 4K, and didn't really test it at 1440p, as I quickly just upgraded or bought a 1080 Ti, because I realized that's essentially the 4K card. And I did spend a lot of time playing in 4K with my 1080 Ti. Games like Far Cry Primal, which I love Far Cry Primal, and Dying Light, another game that I really enjoyed playing in 4K. On top of that, Resident Evil 7, I enjoyed playing that too, which I'm excited for Resident Evil Village or Resident Evil 8. When it comes out, maybe we'll do a whole video on it, test its gameplay, or I'm sorry, test its performance, right? See how well it performs. But 1080, the GTX 1080 though, great for 1080p high refresh rate gaming, especially if you're on a 144 hertz plus monitor. But yeah, it does seem like a large part of the community is progressing towards 1440p, and even with Sony and Microsoft now marketing their consoles around that same buzzword to where it's 1440p 120 hertz, which using it's using gimmicky technology to achieve that. It's not a native resolution, right? But PCs, this is going to be on a shirt, fam. Listen to me. PCs have character. Consoles have a purpose, or consoles have purpose. PCs have character, right? Being able to game at a native resolution is very important to the experience, in my honest opinion, right? Getting the most out of the game, right? Basic says best monitor for RTX 2060 or RX 5600 XT paired with Ryzen 5 3600, 16 gigabytes of RAM. It's actually a well-rounded system, right? Well-rounded system. I would actually probably have my eyes set to test that system here going forward, for as I suspect the cost of the 3600 to drop lower than $149, going with 5600Xs becoming more and more in stock, and with AMD rumored to release a 5600 variant, we could see the 3600 drop in price, maybe about $149 to $129. That'd be ideal, because for a souped up 8700K, that's incredible value for the money. But to answer your question, Basic, for an RTX 2060 and a Ryzen 5 3600, I mean, you can go with a 1080p an IPS monitor, right? 144 hertz. The 2060 may not be able to output that many frames, nor a 5600 XT would be able to output that much frames. But you the RTX 2060, not necessarily a 1440p card. Even if you went with the super variant with the 8 GB VRAM buffer, the RTX 2060 with a 6 GB VRAM buffer is, in my opinion, somewhere between a 1440p 60, is a good card for a 1440p 60 hertz monitor, or a 1080p 75 hertz 120 hertz monitor, somewhere in between there. Depending on the game you're playing and depending on your settings you play at, that graphics card and that CPU would easily be able to exceed frame rates in between those two figures there. So about 75 hertz to 75 hertz to 120 hertz monitor at 1080p. But if you're interested in 1440p, I would maybe consider a 60 hertz monitor or a 75 hertz 1440p monitor. And even then, you would still have to tweak some settings depending on the type of games you play. Accelerated Gaming says IPS displays being affordable and high performance, is there really a need for VA or TN panels anymore? It's a good question, because we mentioned that earlier in the live stream, Cliff, is that IPS monitors, IPS displays have improved in those areas here recently. I would say TN panels, they do serve their purpose. TN VA panels for the budget conscious buyers, but twisted pneumatic panels, I mean, they are a little dated. TN panels might be suitable for non-gamers, right? Let's say you have a standard end user, right? Maybe you have a business and you need a monitor to just for normal operations, and you maybe don't want to invest in a gaming monitor. You don't care about variable refresh rates. But you're right. I mean, for gamers, you really kind of want to strive for VA or IPS, depending on where you're budgeting and how much budget you have. Even some of the examples we listed here between the BenQ and the BenQ 24-inch monitor, which retailed for $109, right? That was a 75-inch IPS monitor. A 75 hertz, $109 IPS monitor. Not bad, right? At that price point, I would highly recommend going with IPS. I believe that was a question we had earlier. Bad Habit, that's a very interesting point you make. Because Bad Habit says, now I feel like I'm missing out. I'm missing a lot by not having a decent monitor. And it's why it was so important in this live stream to discuss that, because you want to get the most out of your hardware as your hardware, or out of your monitor, as your monitor is trying to get the most out of your hardware, right? So it's going to start with the GPU and the CPU working in tandem to output frames, especially at 1080p. Those two components are going to work in tandem to output those frames. Your monitor sitting back saying, well, hey, buddy, I can only display 144 hertz images per second. What are you doing? You're throwing 300, you're rendering 300 frames per second, and I can't keep up. Here comes screen tearing, right? But when you know and understand your hardware, you know what your maximum frame rate output is. having the right monitor and understanding your frame rate, understanding your refresh rate. Understanding your refresh rate is important to getting the most out of your gaming experience. Um, it's very it's very important if you're a competitive gamer, right? Now I keep saying that, but do tell me now in the chat if you play competitively. Like, I don't want to come off as ignorant and not knowing and just assume everybody plays competitively, because not everybody plays competitively. Maybe you're like me and you're cash. I'm not really cash because I benchmark a lot of games too, which in turn I call myself gaming. But I don't play competitively, but I do play competitive games. I just don't play them competitively. So a high refresh rate isn't as important to me as it may be to someone who plays competitively. More detail in my graphics, higher pixel density, uh, you know, immersion. Those things are what's important to me as a gamer. So when it came to wanting to get a monitor for myself, those were the three areas I looked into, and it was ones we had talked about earlier. For those of you who weren't present at the beginning of the live stream, and that was three things that are you should take into consideration when buying a monitor: resolution, screen size, refresh rate. How is each one important? Resolution on the side of things, 1080p, some 2 million pixels, right? 1440p, some 3 plus million pixels, and 4K, 8 million pixels. Then you have screen size, which plays a role in you know uh, pixel density. Then you have refresh rate, right, which is really which plays an intricate part to how smooth your game will feel. But speaking of your game feeling smooth, we talked about how it's important to or it's okay, if you will, to have a higher frame rate than what your monitor is able to process. But you do get things like screen tearing, right? Very important to know. You do get things like screen tearing, which could be hard to deal with. And we're just kind of catching up from some of what we talked about earlier. But you do get screen tearing. Screen tearing, um, and so screen tearing is just when you have a frame is being overlaid over a previously rendered frame, and so you're getting this kind of you're getting lines across your screen, and it's very annoying. It's very annoying. I dealt with it with some of the games I played, but I don't use any adaptive sync when I'm playing, subjectively. When I'm playing games just for fun, I don't use screen. I'm normally past my monitor's refresh rate anyway. I don't need to. Let's scroll up and get caught up in the chat. I see XLR Gaming says, I really can't go back to IPS. I really can't go back. IPS all the way. And XLR Gaming uses the Alienware DW120, I believe. It's a great monitor. It's a very high-end monitor. If you're looking on the 3440 by 4, if you're looking for an ultra-wide monitor, right, a quad ultra-wide monitor, that's a pretty decent monitor to consider. 3440 by 1440p is a resolution I consider in general, man. Like, wow, wow. But I agree with you. I mean, I felt the same way with the higher resolution, and that's gaming at 3440 by 1440p. 4K is great and all, but I like the larger aspect ratio, if you will, the 21 by 9 aspect ratio. 16 by 9 is okay. 16 by 9 is the standard, right? That's like all the monitors we went through and looked over a few minutes ago. 16 by 9 is fine, but man, 21 by 9 just introduced a whole new level of immersion in games, man. It's pretty fun. And Demetrius says, or I'm sorry, Cliff says, monitor makes the experience for sure. Yeah, absolutely. Monitor is one of the most important integral components of your system. And Cliff and a few of you, Bad Habit, I know you guys were on some of the previous live streams we did where we walked through building computers. You heard me say it. Your monitor is the component you should consider first before configuring any other part. It could be tricky, those steps, right? But I highly recommend when you're looking, if you're a first time builder, this is especially for you. If you're a first time builder, I highly recommend when you're shopping for your graphics card, shop for a monitor at the same time. Okay? Research your resolutions and decide what is going to benefit your playstyle. Are you playing competitively? Or you're looking to jump in and say, I want to play some Cyberpunk, I want to play some Skyrim, heavily modded, which, on a side note, Skyrim is locked at whatever your monitor's refresh rate is. There's no getting past that. I played it on 4K on a 60 hertz monitor, but you can use like different mods to unlock it. But at the time when I was research doing it, I saw that it was not recommended because of how the refresh rate is locked to the game's UI. Fallout 76 is this way too. I like playing Fallout 76, especially in ultra wide. But one problem I have with Fallout 76 is once I switch to 3440 by 1440p, it locks the frame rate at 50. So I can or fix 50 hertz no matter what. So I'm like, even on my RTX 2080 Ti, I'd be at like 45 to 50% GPU utilization, and that's with all the settings turned all the way up. But because the game is locked, my graphics card is not working nowhere near as hard as it should, even at that resolution. So it's incredibly frustrated with Bethesda games in that regard. Just something to take into consideration and note. But I highly agree with Cliff. Your gaming monitor makes the experience. The CPU, the RGB. I love RGB, right? Right? I love RGB. RGB is dope. But the monitor is probably the most important component, right? The most important component. Demetrius says you gotta love the kiddos. Yeah, absolutely, man. I love my kids. I believe my kids are here on the live stream still. I see we have a few more people. Wow, just joining in. If you're just now tuning in, welcome to the live stream. Welcome to the Inside the Lab weekly live Q&A show. We talked about ways that you could better understand your monitor or better understand your refresh rate to enhance and how it can impact or how it can have an impact on your gaming experience. How important it is to understand the three aspects you should take into consideration when buying a monitor. That's your resolution, your screen size, and your refresh rate / response time. They go hand in hand, along with adaptive sync technology, G-Sync, FreeSync, V-Sync. Don't use FreeSync or don't use V-Sync. I don't recommend it. You can, but I wouldn't recommend use V-Sync. Okay, you're better off just leaving. Turn it off. Turn it off. Turn it off. If you don't believe me, I dare you to turn it on. And you'll feel the delay in input, right? You'll feel delay in input. And latency is it's a measure of how long it takes for an input to be registered or sent to the server and then bounce back to you. It's how long that takes. So this is why important if you're playing keyboard and mouse, this is why it's important to have a monitor that has a fast response time, right? Response time, how long it takes for pixels to change colors, right? Refresh rate, how many images are displayed on screen at any given time. 60, 144, 240, 280. All that means is that the monitor is displaying 60 images per second because video games, we talked about this, right? Let me go back up to my example here. You gotta love the examples. But video games are digital flipbooks. Video games are digital flipbooks, right? They're images being displayed quickly. It's incredible how monitors work, how technology and monitors work. I'm actually fascinated by it. Technology fascinates me, fam. Beyond just playing and being able to work with computers is one of the reasons why being a content creator, like I developed games as an independent game developer here or over in Delaware. At the time, I was operating a independent game studio, and wanting to get into content creation, I knew it had to be something I have general passion for. And I have a general passion for technology and even just the science and the magic of how it works. And if you would think, or if you understood how how video games work and how the images are processed, I mean, it's just an overall amazing experience. Or just it's like magic. I can't express that enough. It's like magic. You gotta love it. And we also talked about how when your gameplay gets choppy, it's one of the reasons why when your gameplay, when you start to drop frames and your gameplay gets choppy, because the flipbook is slowing down, right? You're seeing less images on your screen. This is why your game turns into, it turns into a flipbook, I guess. But it's a worse digital flipbook. With the digital flipbook, you don't want that. With the digital flipbook, aka a video game, you want a high refresh rate, right? You want your monitor display as many images as possible. If you're on a 60 hertz monitor, right, and if you're on a 60 hertz monitor and your hardware is you're surpassing that 60 hertz, right? Maybe you're surpassing like 100, 120. consider even just upgrading your monitor. Can really consider upgrading your monitor um, as a way to deal with your screen tearing, right? Especially if you're able to get a monitor with adaptive sync technology. Okay. Let me jump over to the chat. Cliff says, XLR Gaming says, don't play much competitive or multiplayer. I'm in the same boat. I will say that my family, our moderator, my wife, Kimberly, and my son and my daughter, we played, I believe it was last weekend after the live stream. We played Fortnite till about 10 o'clock at night. And no kidding, fam, we got 6 straight victory royales. That is no BS. 6 straight victory royales, right? Like we was doing it, man. We was having fun. 6 straight. We only stopped playing because we had to go. It was like school night for the kid, for my daughter, and but we got 6 straight victory royale. So that was pretty sweet. But I'm with you, Cliff. I don't really play competitive, and I don't really play multiplayer. It's not when I assign time to game. Trust me, multiplayer and competitive aren't even my first choices. In fact, I only want to play multiplayer and competitive when I'm able to play with people that are close to me and people that I really know. So if that's like friends or my family, like I just mentioned with my daughter and my son. And then Bad Habit says, yes, I play. I'm sorry, just getting caught up in the chat. I know there's a little delay, but let me get caught up in the chat. Bad Habit says, yes, I play TF2, Titanfall 2 a lot, and the game is very competitive. Yeah, and Titanfall 2, correct me if I'm wrong, Bad Habit, but Titanfall 2 is a game where you would especially benefit from having a high refresh rate and low response time monitor, just given how fast and action paced it is, especially when the Titans come down. I played the beta of Titanfall. I like that Titanfall 2 introduced a campaign, especially. I didn't play it though, but I like how Titanfall 2 introduced a campaign, and then Apex, Legends spun off from it, and I just never went back to it. But I like the overall look and feel of the Titanfall universe. And Basic says, fun question. Does a good monitor make you better in competitive games like CSGO, Fortnite, Valorant? For real. Yes, absolutely it does. And if you look at our example we displayed earlier between 60 hertz, 144 hertz, and 240 hertz, you'll see that you respond faster than your competition, as you can see here in this example, right? You respond faster than your competition. Will it make you better? Fam, that's like saying, will you buy Jordans? Will it make you a better basketball player? It still very much comes down to you, the competitor. But does it give you a competitive edge, a high refresh rate, low response time, IPS panel monitor especially? Yes, it does for real. But now, again, it still very much comes down to you, the player. I play Fortnite on a 100 hertz monitor, and I think it definitely helps me when I'm testing on lower refresh rates. I do notice a difference. I'm not even as good as when I'm playing on my base system, but yes, it does give you a competitive edge, especially in CS:GO, which CS:GO, you know, favors tight input and is really dependent on precision and movement and what have you. So yes, it does give you an edge. Remember, games are digital flip books, so it's important that you're able to have a high number of frames being refreshed, or your monitor refreshing as many frames as possible, right? That also, the biggest benefit of that, which will give you a competitive edge, excuse me, it reduces your input lag. This is why it's okay if the screen tearing, if it's not as common, maybe you don't have any screen tearing at all, but this is why it's good to still very much run, have frame rates that exceed your monitor's refresh rate. Okay, especially if the screen tearing and ghosting and stuttering, juddering and juke jiving, jumping and wailing, or what have you. So long as those things aren't as bad, leave off vertical synchronization, any type of adaptive synchronization tech. Just let your hardware output as many frames as possible. You know, benefit from a fast monitor. It does give you a competitive edge. Bad Habit says the thing is, I really don't notice screen tearing or lag, but I guess it's there. Maybe I will notice when I upgrade to a better monitor. Well, it's good that you don't notice it. If you don't notice it, that could be a good thing, right? If you don't notice it, that could be a good thing. When you are ready to upgrade to your monitor, I know you follow me on Twitter, Bad Habit. You follow me on Twitter. Tag us and let us know what you're shopping for. Bad Habit says, and our moderator, shout out to our moderator, says, I play competitive games casually. That's a very interesting way to put that because I probably would fall into that category myself. Like, yeah, I play competitive games casually. I'm a casual competitive gamer. Dirko says he hit 10 anyway. It's an inside joke. Polecat123 says, Hi, Polecat, I hope you're still with us. I'm sorry I got into the chat late. I do apologize. Welcome to the live stream, Polecat. I don't believe we've had the opportunity to chat and partake and have you partake in the conversation here in our weekly live Q&A. I do hope you're still with us. If you have any questions about this topic, Polecat123, or anything else we talked about, please feel free to drop them in the comment section. I'm sorry, not the comment section, the chat box. What I meant to say, if you're here on a replay, you got questions, drop them down in the comment section below. Our moderator says hello to Polecat. Bad Habit says, so in the graphics menu, turn off FreeSync and G-Sync if you do not have the hardware to support them. Yeah, Bad Habit, really G-Sync and FreeSync would be disabled by default, especially if you don't have the compatible hardware. And definitely you want to VSync is disabled. Like you definitely want to make sure VSync is disabled. Yeah, especially if you don't have the hardware to support them, right? Or you can't output those frames. Bad Habit says yes. Titanfall 2, super fast, best FPS ever. All caps. I can't believe people slept on it. It's 4 years old and it's still the best. Some things age well, right? Like wine, some things just age well. And Cliff says, will Windows ever get its PC HDR together? I've been disappointed on PC HDR even on 6800 nit monitors compared to the HDR on TV. That's a very interesting that's a very interesting question. I think that Windows is trying to fix their HDR incompatibility woes, along with hardware manufacturers trying to catch up, right? I had a 4K HDR monitor, and you're right, XLR Gaming, when I would try to play Resident Evil 7 in HDR mode, Windows would just get like completely wonky on me. The moment I would turn on HDR, although the game supported it, the 4K TV supported it that I was gaming on at the time, and it still very much just was not working, and I gave up. Like I rated out for HDR, but high dynamic range, when it gets here, I do think that the technology and monitors will get better. And watch, mark my words, maybe don't mark my words, but maybe we'll even have like HDR 2.0 or like HDR 3 or HDMI, something to that effect, to just market it as better than what was previously available to consumers. But yeah, and HDR can really add to a game's look and just experience and feel. Just that high dynamic range of, just the quality and graphics and what have you. But yeah, I mean, Windows has a lot to get together. I have no real big quarrels with Windows, right? Other than it takes a lot of updates to get it, and they're stacked. So it's like you have to go through one update to another. So every time I build new PCs, or if we're doing a fresh new build to benchmark or do a video on, and I'm reinstalling Windows, that is the bottleneck with the whole entire, like, that the process stops there as you want to run your tests, right? You want to make sure your benchmarks are as representative as possible of a user experience by making sure your windows are all updated, your graphics card is all updated. So it could be a huge bottleneck, and a lot of times I find myself just waiting for Windows to get done updating. But I too grow frustrated of their HDR woes. But yeah, and I see we have a few more people joining into the live stream still. Very much welcome, welcome. As you're coming in at the segment where we're overall just looking back and discussing that the theme of this live stream was understanding your monitor's refresh rate and the impact it can have on your gaming experience. A lot of interesting questions, a lot of information shared, a lot of helpful information shared on this live stream. If you have any questions about any of the things we talk about, do feel free, drop them down in the comment section or in the live chat. Do let us know, because your screen size, right, your resolution, your refresh rate, or like we overall talked about, having your monitor, getting the most out of your monitor, is very important to your experience, your end user experience on your system, right? Very important. So yeah, we looked over a few graphics cards. We went over a few monitors, right? A few 24 inches and 27-inch monitors. If you're interested in any of the monitors we rehashed and we talked about, you can find them down in the description box below, down in the basement that we like to call it, aka the basement. But you can find any of those you can find any of those monitors. I got graphics cards on mine. Why? Because they're still foobarred. They're still screwed a little bit. Um, Rumor has it that AMD is looking to introduce more RX stock coming up here in quarter 3. So that's good. That's good to know. So yeah, but again, understanding your refresh rate will ensure a smooth and high quality experience on PC. Consider all of the things we discussed today during this live stream before or when upgrading or buying a new monitor. The marriage between PC hardware and your monitor can surely be a beautiful coupling when it's done right and with adequate forethought. Do your research. Understand how much, the maximum frame rate output possible for your graphics card. Watch a few videos. You can even watch a few here on the channel, right? And again, if you're here on the live with us now or you're here on the replay and you're not yet subscribed, one, I welcome you to like the stream, and two, definitely subscribe with the notification bell on if you are not a subscriber. We are growing. We are getting there. I like to try to hit 25K would be nice. We're growing. We're growing. I like to unlock more features. So definitely recommend you to subscribe to the channel. And Cliff says Nvidia changed its nit requirements on monitors recently. I heard. Yeah, I have to. Nvidia is all over the place with their monitor manufacturing right now, but I'd have to look into that. I will honestly say the Nvidia's monitors normally carry a premium, so they're not as widely available, if you will, or accessible is a better choice of words. But yeah, but all right, now I think the ride is slowly coming to an end, right? I do want to say a shout out to thank everybody who stopped by, starting with XLR Gaming. That's our friend Cliff. Bad Habit. Shout out to our moderator Kimberly. Polecat123, which I guess Polecat left us, but Polecat, thanks for stopping by. If you're still here, I stand corrected. Durko, right? My son Basic stopped by and was engaging. Basic, if you're still here with us, thank you for joining the live stream with us here today. Remember, we go live once a week here on the channel. Right? We go live here once a week. Do keep a lookout if you're not yet subscribed to our email list. Subscribe to our email list as the live stream notifications will start rolling out there first. And who else? Let's see. We had Demetrius, who is me, champ. Tricion. Darkness Plays stopped in and said what's up for a while. Tiger Nation, my other son, stopped by and said what's up. Yeah, awesome members here in the community, like always. And I do appreciate everybody who stopped by. And Polecat says, I found this on my recommended. That's awesome to know that I'm making I'm making it over in the recommended tab. Man, I can't talk today. But that's awesome, Polecat. I hope during this live stream, I hope I was informative enough and entertaining enough to have earned your subscription to our community here. Again, we do weekly videos, weekly normal VODs, and we go live once a week. I do maybe plan on doing a pop-up, live stream. I keep saying that, but I'm telling you it's coming. I'm just trying to wait for it's never the right time. It's more so I'm waiting for the right moment or the right game to play. But I do have one in mind that I just want to pop up, and if you're paying attention and you got if you got the notification bell turned on, that's YouTube's version of the bell. You should get the notification, and we can just come in and have a nice informal conversation, or we can talk about any recent news or anything you may, have on your mind or want to talk about. I see Bad Habit says hi to Polecat. Yeah, Polecat, it's welcome. It's welcome, Polecat. Polecat, in this community, we welcome all builds, all budgets of all sizes, friendly family atmosphere, right? All good times. All good times. So yeah, I definitely welcome you to. I welcome you to subscribe to the channel if you're not already a subscriber. If you're on the replay, definitely subscribe. If you made it this far, I like to hope to imagine you are subscribed to the channel. But if you haven't yet, again, I welcome you to subscribe. But yeah, You monitor, fam. Guys and gals, it's important. I hate to be repetitive here, but it's important to your experience. It really is. It really is. Do your due diligence. Do your, like we like to call, market research. Don't look at the perspective of, well, of a seller, like where we talked about how to get rid of your PC, best way to get rid of your PC hardware in last week's live stream, right? We talked about that 21% increase in e-junk or e-waste, right? And how that's increased over the last 5 years. How 20% of that, some 59 million tons annually, and only 20% of it's being recycled. We talked about, watch that conversation, watch that live show. You can find that in the most recent tabs or the most recent playlist. But you know, it just do your due diligence, do your market research, right? Understand the hardware before you buy it. Excuse me. Understand your workflow and what's going to be important to your experience because it's very much different for each and one of us. What's a playable refresh rate to me, may not be playable to Bad Habit or Cliff XLR Gaming or even yourself, Polecat, right? Some Most console gamers find anything under 30 to be, or 30 FPS to be the average or the absolute minimum that they consider playable. For me, I would deem the higher the resolution, the more I'm willing to compromise on refresh rate. For example, at 4K, playable to me between 40 to 50 FPS. Doesn't necessarily have to be 60 and above, because you're compensating for the higher resolution. So when I'm gaming at 4K, 60 isn't necessarily the bare minimum I like to target for a game to feel playable to me. 40 to 50 frames is playable to me at that resolution. It also depends on the type of game though. More so not first person shooters, but and then with 2560 by 1440p, 60 hertz is a really good bare minimum to be at. It's like you're having a smooth experience, high graphics, those extra 900 plus pixels to take into consideration. It'll really just improve your experience, right? And XLR Gaming says greetings to Polecat. Yeah, it says welcome Polecat. Again, awesome community. Every weekend we go live. We have awesome members of the community that come out and just share, add in their experiences, share your losses, share your victories. Polecat, if you have any questions, like if you're new to PC building, if you have any questions along the process, you can always hit me up on Facebook, which I see Accelerated Gaming says that Facebook group coming, wink wink, nudge nudge. Yes, in fact, I will share this with everybody that's here in the live stream now. The Facebook group notification, you will see the links roll out, or you'll get the group invite before the end of this month. That is happening indefinitely. I've already laid the groundwork behind the scene. Just trying to get put a little bit more legwork into it to get it properly set up before the email invites go out to users. But yeah, the Facebook group is going to be a really fun extension of this community where we're going to be able to share, you know, pictures or barter. And if you're looking for, to sell or buy PCs, you'll be able to do it in a trusted community. It'll be curated through myself, and we'll make sure there are plenty of safeguards to protect you. It's one of the benefits of having a closed community and a heavy vetting process as well. You better believe that. And it'd also be a great place to say if you have like-minded friends or like-minded fan members that you think could also benefit from partaking in these conversations or could benefit as being a member here in the community. I definitely would welcome you sharing the link with them, sharing the channel with them, bringing them into the community, or even bringing them into the Facebook group, which is one of the strengths of Facebook in my honest opinion. That's bringing together like-minded individuals in a very community-rich format and a very community-rich structure that you really don't get on Twitter, as it's mostly about the person that's being followed. But with Facebook, the significance is all on the group and its members. So yeah, oh trust me, the Facebook group is still coming, and the Discord chat. So if that's something you're interested in, if you're here on the live stream now, if you're here on the replay, and you're interested in joining our Discord, or you're going to be interested in joining our Facebook group, I highly recommend you join. Sorry for all the shameful plugs, but I highly recommend you join our email list because that is going to be the only place I send the notifications out first. They will not go on social media. So they won't go on social media until we introduce channel membership through Patreon or either here on YouTube, should I be able to unlock them. But they will not go out to the normal socials. first invites will be for email list signees, or those of you who are signed up for the community digest, our newsletter. So if you haven't yet signed up for it, it's totally free, right? All you need is your first name and email address, right? Um, Sign up. Highly recommend you do it. It's gonna be great for us to keep the conversation going off the platforms, and a great insurance policy should anything happen to this channel or anything happen to this community. I know I won't lose you guys and gals forever, if you will. We can forever be in this communication loop so long as I am worthy enough to embrace your email box. Right? We talked about that during the housekeeping segment. For those of you who don't know, in housekeeping, every live stream we talked about, ways you can directly support the channel. If that's something you're interested in, directly supporting the channel, through either merch or just visiting the website or even just signing up for our email list, it really does go a long way. And I do appreciate every single one of you who are signed up. I do recognize some faces. I'm gonna use the term faces. I do recognize some names and faces that are here with us now that are signed up for the email list. So I do appreciate you all. And yeah. But all right, there you go. So spill over. With that aside, again, I do thank everybody for showing up for today's live stream, and I do appreciate everybody, tuning in and joining in the conversation. Shout out to everybody who took their time out to spend some of their time with me on this beautiful Saturday, wherever you are in the world. Do appreciate you. But the ride has come to an end. It's all time for us to get off the roller coaster. We all had fun at the theme park. Now it's time for us to maybe go play some games, spend some time with the important ones in our life. Maybe that is playing some video games. I sure as heck would like to play some video games with my family right now, right? And on a side note, before we go, I did consider going live when we were doing it, and I will strongly reconsider that too, right? So you may or may not see me again between tonight and tomorrow. But I may stream that, as it's fun times. It really is. So yeah. But either way, thanks for hanging out here doing this YouTube live. I do hope to catch you all in the next one. So until then, be easy, hang out, let's talk in the chat. Peace. Peace out. Peace out, Bad Habit. I'm not sure if I'm too late. I think you just left. But peace out, Bad Habit. Thanks for stopping by again, fam. Thanks for hanging out here on the chat. Again, if you want to keep the conversation going, we can talk in the chat. I do appreciate everybody stopping out and hanging out. No problem, Bad Habit. As he said, thank you. You're welcome, fam. Appreciate you. Appreciate you spending time with us. Yeah, accelerated gaming, especially if we can work it out to where I can even maybe game with you guys and gals. But yeah, I love that. We worked that out. No, if, like, no, you say you don't really play competitive, but hey, you never know. Maybe we can have fun looking bad. Gotta love it though.